So, part three, some more recommended books on women in Islam to understand women's rights in Islam, as well as some Muslim women scholars. So, the first book is called Sexual Violation in Islamic Law. Sexual Violation in Islamic Law by Hina Azam. It's an excellent book, well researched, about how classical Muslim scholars viewed non consensual intercourse, or also known as obviously rape. A really good book. The second book is called Marriage, Money and Divorce in Medieval Islamic Society. Marriage, Money and Divorce in Medieval Islamic Society by Rapoport. Yusuf Rapoport, where he argues that there was high rates of divorce in medieval Islamic societies, and the idea that many Muslims had traditionally towards divorce is very different to the understand that many Muslims have nowadays. In terms of divorce wasn't stigmatized. Another book I would recommend is called Rebellious Wives, Neglectful Husbands. Rebellious Wives, Neglectful Husbands, and this is a book written by Hadia Mubarak. Hadia Mubarak, where she looks at controversies in modern Quranic commentaries. So she looks at the rebellious wives. It's called Rebellious Wives, Neglectful Husbands, where she looks at interpretation of nushuz and how that's been understood classically and in the contemporary world. So nushuz referring to a woman who is, some people say, rebellious, disobedient, and how that was understood traditionally and how it's understood by contemporary scholars. Wives and Work. Wives and Work, again, another really good book by Marion Holmes Katz. Who's an academic and a professor of Middle Eastern and Islamic studies in the UK. In New York, sorry. And she looks at how traditionally, how classical scholars understood whether women need to work, and how that's understood, how it was understood traditionally compared to contemporary scholars. Another good book. This is a compilation of essays. It's called Marriage and Sexuality. Marriage and Sexuality in the Early Modern Iberia. So, Marriage and Sexuality in Early Modern Iberia. And this is a compilation of scholars writing about how marriage and sexuality was understood in the Arabian Peninsula, not in the Arabian Peninsula, sorry, in Islamic Spain, in Andalusia. So, definitely check that book out. Another book written by Asma Barlas. Asma Barlas, who I believe is a South Asian, I think a Pakistani academic scholar and academic. She's a professor of politics in New York. So she wrote Believing Women in the Quran. Believing Women in the Quran, where she looks at interpretations of women and, in her views, unreading patriarchal interpretations of the Quran. So it's looking at unreading patriarchal interpretations of Islam. Again, for those of people who are feminists or interested in feminism, this is I think she doesn't consider herself to be a feminist, but again, she's looking at the Quran from a more, you could say, gender equity or gender equality perspective. So a couple more books I would recommend. Against White Feminism, Rafia Zakaria. So Against White Feminism by Rafia Zakaria. Really good book, where she somewhat attacks white feminism or Western feminism. So again, it's a really interesting book. This is a really good book as well. Sex and Lies by Leila Slimani. Leila Slimani, who is, I believe she is a French Moroccan. She's originally from Morocco, but I think she lives in France. She's a journalist. She speaks about how Moroccans view sex and how it's quite a taboo topic, and many Moroccans she considers to be quite prudish. That's quite interesting because the views of Morocco amongst many Arabs and Muslims is that they're quite liberal, whereas she was saying that despite that there is still a lot of puritanical and prudish attitudes in Morocco and a lot of double standards which she's trying to debunk and empower women. This is another really good book, Lust and Grace. Sex and Eroticism in the Works of Muslim Scholars. And this is written by a Moroccan scholar and academic, Ali Gandor. Ali Gandor, I believe he's based in Germany. Really good book looking at how traditional and classical Muslim scholars, how they viewed intimacy and sexuality, and many of the classical scholars of the past, such as Asyuti, were not very conservative the way many Muslim scholars are today, and many Muslims. And the last book, of course, is my book. I'm going to give a shout out to my own book, Women of Desire. Women of Desire by Habiba Kandi, myself, a guide to passionate love and sexual compatibility. So this is a book where I present many sexually empowered women in Islamic history, from scholars, academics, activists, who spoke about the importance of women's sexual satisfaction and women's rights in Islam. Not only free women but enslaved women. So that's my book, Women of Desire, about sexually empowered women in Islam, and how many of their stories are often untold and marginalized by not only religious authorities but also by some women themselves who yes, it's a controversial topic, but again, that's my book. So that's my videos. And again, to know more, check out the presentation that I gave for Historion called Mothers of Civilization, Feminine Touch, Female Scholarship in Islamic Civilizations. Feminine Touch, Female Scholarship in Islamic Civilization, and that is a presentation I made for Historion, which is a website which produces great content on Islamic history, great content on like documentary films on Islamic history, Muslim history, the Islamic civilization. So you can check out historion.com, HISTORYUN, historion.com. Previously they were called Ilm Film. It's run by Ustad Ibrahim, who's based in the UK. Really good resource. I definitely recommend you check them out.